The most important voice for any sports-centric program is that of the lead commentator, the play-by-play announcer. That voice is the salesperson for the images being displayed, a vital link between the consumer and the product. A credible, trustworthy, and entertaining voice can form a relationship with the audience and can themselves hold drawing power. A voice that is unreliable, inane, or lacking in some other necessary quality can be a turn-off, causing viewers reaching for their remotes without hesitation. While WWE has had a vivid parade of color commentators over the past 3+ decades, their list of truly remarkable play-by-play men is much shorter. Some of WWE's lead voices have enjoyed lengthy, legendary tenures, and that alone causes other list candidates to pale mightily. Some, like those who occupy the top spaces, are so indelibly part of the WWE lore that successors have paled anyway, unable to match the authority of others that occupied the same chair. This list will no doubt be a bit controversial, as some of those who made the cut have often been derided, and rightfully so at times. But we here at Cultaholic are not afraid of controversy. This is a truly warts-and-all representation of WWE's best play-by-play men ever, and you will soon realise the distance not only between number 1 and number 10, but number 1 and number 5 as well. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic.com, and this is the 10 best WWE play-by-play commentators ever. Join us! Number 10, Josh Matthews. When compiling this list, I was initially only able to come up with 9 solid choices. I had to resort to polling close friends, other Cultaholic staffers, and even cold-calling random people to help me come up with a 10th pick out of a list of less desirable candidates. In the end, current Impact Wrestling voice Josh Matthews got the nod, which was like being the least odorous out of 6 different soiled litter boxes. While Matthews earns criticism for his prickly demeanor, combative attitude on social media, and the fact that his voice is deepened in post-production, in TNA anyway, he's better than people think. Perhaps Matthews' best run as an announcer came during his 2 years calling the Sunday Night B show Velocity. There, Matthews was apt to demonstrate his genuine wrestling knowledge, putting in many cuts above the flavourless Ken dolls that WWE has hired for broadcasting spots over the years. He was also fine as the voice of the ECW brand in its final year of existence. Up until Matthews went to TNA in early 2015, the only criticism one could offer was that his voice wasn't particularly authoritative, that he sounded like Doogie Howser, wrestling commentator. Number 9, Sean Mooney. Who? Was the common response whenever Bobby Heenan heard Mooney's name, and it's become part of Mooney's identity, to the point where Who is even part of his Twitter handle. Although Mooney wasn't the greatest announcer to have ever donned a WWE headset, he actually held his own in a time where he was surrounded by true industry giants. Mooney functionally replaced Craig DeGeorge in 1988 as the news update talking head. His primary contributions to commentary were on Coliseum video releases, dubbing over matches alongside usual commentary partner Lord Alfred Hayes. As mentioned, Mooney was definitely overshadowed by his more prolific colleagues. Mooney was worlds better than the likes of Dick Graham, Rod Trongard, and other localized announcers that did WWE's Philadelphia Spectrum and Madison Square Garden at the time. Mooney's voice could be excitable, but never overly so, giving him an even edge that was a far cry from, say, Trongard's strained warbling. Additionally, although he couldn't, nor could anybody else, match Mean Gene Okerlund in the backstage interviewer department, Mooney earnestly held his own in that position, easily putting today's wooden question answers to shame. Number 8, Kevin Kelley. While some WWE staff hires have zero prior experience in the wrestling industry, Kevin Kelley was not one of them. Prior to his 1996 debut as an announcer on Monday Night Raw, Kelley had gotten his start in 1991 as a ring announcer for the Florida-based International Wrestling Federation. Fans are generally savvy enough to tell when an announcer or interviewer has some form of wrestling background, and Kelley's feel for the sport was pretty obvious. It speaks volumes that Kelley was given Vince McMahon's chair on Raw almost immediately upon his arrival, for what amounted to a 3 or 4 month run as the voice of the company's flagship show. For his remaining 6 years with the company, Kelley's role was more or less peripheral, acting as either a supplementary ring announcer on major shows, lead announcer for secondary broadcasts, backstage interviewer, or host of internet properties. Always an underrated talent, Kelley could emphasize drama without splitting your eardrums, and understood how to sell the key points of a televised wrestling product. There's a reason why Ring of Honor and New Japan alike have seen the value in having someone like Kevin Kelley helm their desks. Number 7, Tony Shivani. Think of a famous athlete that played most of his career in one city and had a forgettable run on another team that lasted maybe a year. You could use that analogy to sum up Shivani's 1-year tenure with WWE in 1989 to 1990. The Silver Tongue, as Dusty Rhodes would refer to him, was most identifiable as the face of Jim Crockett and Ted Turner broadcast between 1983 and 2001, save for that year that he spent as a Vince McMahon guy. Shivani may have climbed higher on this list with a longer WWE WWE run because his energy and passion were wholly evident, even while wearing a different uniform. Shivani called 2 WWE pay-per-views, the 1989 SummerSlam and the 1990 Royal Rumble, and he was excellent as a partner of Jesse Ventura's. In later years, Shivani would get a bad rap for being the salesperson of a decaying WCW product, and his hyperbolic declarations that this particular Nitro was the greatest night in the history of our sport did him no favours. As far as play-by-play guys go, few could match Shivani's intense tempo when the crescendo nears. If only he'd stuck around longer. Imagine the Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels mid-90s epic with Tony on the call. Number 6, Joey Styles. When Styles popped up at the 2005 Taboo Tuesday pay-per-view, it was a treat to anyone whose ears appreciate quality. When Jim Ross was set to miss months of commentary duties following major surgery, it appeared WWE was set to roll with Jonathan Coachman as lead Raw voice. Styles, whose work at One Night Stand was like chicken soup for the sadist soul, taking over Raw broadcast for the foreseeable future, earned a hearty thumbs up. Sadly, it didn't take too long for the effect to wear off. When Styles crossed over to the ECW brand in 2006, the Extreme Reincarnate didn't do its forebear justice, and Styles was left calling a rather inferior product. Factor in having to tell stories in the overproduced, artificial WWE template of commentary, and what we got between 2006 to 2008 wasn't prime Styles. It was still better than most alternatives, but man, the untethered Joey Styles at One Night Stands was sorely missed. His chemistry with Taz made up for the lack of cutting, unvarnished snideness that was his ECW identity, and compared to most other WWE announcers, even a hindered Joey was better than the median. Number 5, Michael Cole. I know, it's effing Michael Cole. Cole is to Jim Ross what Roman Reigns is to Daniel Bryan. He's the less talented dolt that took over the spotlight from the fans' real choice. And for the last 10 years, Michael Cole hasn't exactly endeared himself to crowds. Hell, his more than 2-year run as an open heel was a swell reminder that our cable packages came equipped with hundreds of other channels. That and his wooden narration makes it pretty clear that these days he's little more than Vince's thought-free marionette. What's often forgotten is that, for a 6-year period, Cole was actually one of the better announcers around. His time on SmackDown between 2002 and mid-2008 saw an enjoyable, lively, and professional-sounding Cole ably calling the action. His 4-year partnership with Taz was especially enjoyable, and there was a brief stretch where some fans and critics perceived them to be a more enjoyable duo than Ross and Lawler on the other show. Yes, really. When he doesn't have Vince in his ear, Cole can be a lot of fun, as evidenced at 2015's Beast in the East, as well as dubs of events like the 1980s Showdown at Shea, where he and Mick Foley gave one of the most entertaining commentary performances ever. Again, yes, really. Number 4, Mauro Ranallo. Ranallo himself is a walking alternative energy source. If you could somehow harness Ranallo's high-strung exuberance, you could power a handful of conjoined nations for decades to come. While Ranallo himself acknowledges that his frenetic commentary and pop culture punctuation are not every viewer's cup of tea, there are many others who have come to love what Ranallo brings to the table, and for good reason. With Floyd Mayweather prize fights, the Pride Fighting Championships, and even English dubs of New Japan Pro Wrestling on his lengthy resume, Ranallo entered the WWE realm in early 2016, bringing with him a colourful personality that made fans take notice. For the first time since Jim Ross's heyday, there was a narrator in WWE capable of matching the highest intensity that the in-ring product had to offer. Even a throwaway match in SmackDown's second hour was a veritable clash of the titans, with Ranallo waxing chaotic. That's not to mention his considerable product knowledge and understanding, as few announcers are his peer when it comes to total preparation. Today, NXT fans get to appreciate Ranallo's florid and evocative prose, the ideal voice for the critically acclaimed takeover events. Number 3, Vince McMahon. The chairman doesn't earn this ranking for his intricate explanations of wrestling's sweetest science. Certainly, the likes of Ranallo, Kelley, and Shivani could run circles around their current or former boss and expounding on ring psychology. There's nothing wrong with taking that tack, but McMahon's style had little use for such particulars. In a carny business, Vince McMahon was the foremost carnival barker, and few could best him on that front. What a maneuver! And 1, 2, yes, he got him! Wait, no he didn't! Were typical catchphrases within the McMahon palette, for which intensity and volume were the primary mediums. McMahon was an ideal salesman for his own product, selling larger-than-life sports entertainment with phlegmy grunts that emphasized the outworldy action. McMahon worked well with a variety of partners, playing it straight against the bombast of bodies, brains, and kings, using a style that amounted to articulate anarchy. Today, it's funny to see the comically evil Mr. McMahon character playing it affably neutral in a previous life, but knowing that he was the one pulling the strings allows one to appreciate appreciate just how hard McMahon worked at getting his own creations over. He was sometimes rough around the edges, but he understood that that's what made the clock tick. Number 2, Gorilla Monsoon. Many memories involving the respected and beloved Gorilla Monsoon are rooted in his partnership with Bobby the Brain Heenan. There was no better foil for Heenan's hijinks and put-downs than Monsoon's exasperated responses. The two played off each other so well that it's easy to forget that the diametrically opposed duo were best friends away from the camera. For as much as that partnership helped shape each man's wrestling legacy, there was more to Monsoon's broadcasting life than just that. Monsoon the announcer cast a long shadow over the WWE product throughout the 1980s and into the mid-90s, calling more than 20 pay-per-views between 1985 and 1994, as well as multiple weekly episodes of television beyond just that frame of time. Though he was prone to much hyperbole and exaggeration, Monsoon's super heavyweight build and friendly smile gave him a trustworthy demeanor, a genuine classiness and charm that set him apart from any other announcer ever. It's hard to think back to the days of Hulkamania and Macho Madness without hearing Gorilla chastise someone's poor abdominal stretch application, or refer to a body part by some obscure, highly complex name, or proclaim that history has been made. Vince McMahon was the brains behind the WWE that many of us grew up with, and Hulk Hogan was the body, but Gorilla Monsoon, he was its voice. Number 1, Jim Ross. Nearly 10 years after he was replaced as the lead voice of Monday Night Raw, and there are still scores of fans clamoring for Jim Ross to reclaim his rightful throne. It helps Ross's case that his successor, Michael Cole, is about as popular as syphilis-flavored water, but it goes beyond just disparate comparisons. WWE wouldn't be the only wrestling promotion or territory that would herald good old JR as the greatest broadcaster ever, and any fan could tell you why. Ross forged a trusted connection with his audience, combining the rurally sweetened excitability of a college football announcer with the earnest honesty of a family doctor. His shock and awe was our shock and awe. And when Ross grew outraged at some heel's treachery, we were just as furious as him. Given the number of truly imitable voices that have graced this list, it might be Jim Ross's that lends itself best to imitation and quotability. No matter what age you are, if you've ever daydreamed of yourself becoming a world champion, you envision Ross's unrestrained exclamation calling the moment. As a play-by-play announcer, Jim Ross is the greatest of all time. As honest as he is hyperbolic, as matter-of-fact as he is electric, and as human as he is larger than life. So that's our list. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and you can follow me on Twitter here. If you enjoy what we do here at Cultaholic, you can pledge to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/Cultaholic. And most importantly, don't forget to hit subscribe and join us.